A massive recruiting weekend continues to prove fruitful for Brian Kelly and the Tigers as they land two more commitments on Saturday. We're talking about it. It's bonus content of Locked on LSU. Let's get it.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thrilled to have you aboard with us here for more bonus content. And why not? Brian Kelly and the Tigers continue smashing the recruiting trail. Friday Night Lights netted the Tigers another commitment in Richard Anderson, the first commitment for the class of 2026. Turned the page to Saturday, and the getting was still getting good for Brian Kelly and the Tigers as Jesse Harrold, a top 10 edge for the class of 2025, popped for the Tigers. And then Jakai Anderson, a wide receiver for the class of 2026, also jumped on board. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe up on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. Let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single weekday and weekends for bonus content on Locked on LSU. All right, let's delve into it. So Friday was a huge day. Of course, Bryce Underwood was back on campus. Eschewed the Elite 11, said, not worried about throwing in pajamas and slippers. Let's go down to Baton Rouge and do some recruiting and play with my future teammates. And it's been a very profitable weekend for Brian Kelly, as with Carius Kern, the number one offensive lineman in the state of Arkansas, according to On3, the number one interior offensive lineman in the country, committed on Thursday. Friday, Richard Anderson, the big defensive lineman from New Orleans, became the first commit for 2026. And then on Saturday, Jakai Anderson got it started for LSU. And Jakai Anderson is if you go look at his recruiting profile, Jakai Anderson is listed as a 3-star safety. Now, he's out of McDonough 35 in New Orleans, and he's a long kid. He's 6 foot tall. Remember, this is a rising junior, so he's entering his junior year of high school. So when Richard Anderson committed, he was the first commit for 2026. A day later, now Jakai Anderson becomes the second commit for 2026. To both out of the New Orleans area. What's interesting, though, is he is listed as a safety and the number 529 player in the country, the 44th best safety in the country, the 15th best player in Louisiana for the class of 2026. But you kind of need to ignore that. And it's not, I'm not saying ignore it just because he's a 3-star and you don't like the way the numbers look. It's because this is the benefit of bringing guys to an elite camp. And you see this from time to time where players may play a certain position in high school because that's what their high school team needs them to do to be successful. But when you get them to an elite camp and college coaches take a look at them, they scout them, they say, I think you're better at this spot. I mean, I remember a guy like Fitzgerald West, who's no longer at LSU, but he was a defensive lineman, came to camp at LSU. Ed Ogeron and his staff said, could you play center? Kid said, I'll do anything you want, coach. They worked him out at center. Boom, offered him on the spot as a center. Now, he obviously entered the portal after this past season. But the point is, that happens. Guys, Josh Reed is maybe a famous one, who was a high school running back, came to LSU. Nick Saban switched him to wide receiver, ended up winning a Biletnikoff. So it's a little incomplete. First of all, because the kid just finished his sophomore year of high school. So he's still got 2 more years before he shows up at LSU. But also because he's going to have to transition and continue to play wide receiver to see how that looks. Now, here's one thing that I will say. I trust LSU's evaluation at receiver. And it's not just this staff. And listen, Cortez Hankton, has shown an elite ability to recruit and develop wide receivers and pump them into the draft. But if you look at LSU, and listen, I'm not trying to even project what the 2026 receiving core is going to look like. Like, just to put this into your brain, if he stays, 2026 would be Shelton Sampson's senior season, his 4th year in Baton Rouge, if he sticks around, so we'll see. Kyron Lacey will be long gone by that point. The transfers this year, C.J. Daniels, Xavion Thomas will be long gone. So I have no idea what the receiver room will look like in 2026. But here's what I do know. if you look at LSU's top 2 receivers every season, you got to go a long way to find someone that wasn't from Louisiana. Indulge me if you would. Last year, we know it was Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. 2022 was Neighbors and Kayshawn Booty. 21, it was Booty and Jeray Jenkins. 2020 was Booty and Terrace Marshall. 2019, we know it was Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. 2018, it was Jefferson and Stephon Sullivan. In 17, it was DJ Chark and Russell Gage. 16, it was Malachi Dupree and DJ Chark. You getting a trend here? Then Malachi Dupree and Traven Durrell and Dupree, Odell and Jarvis and Odell, Randall and Odell. You have to go all the way back to 2010. You have to go back 14 years when Terrence Tolliver led LSU in receiving ahead of Ruben Randall. That was the last time LSU had a leading receiver that wasn't from the state of Louisiana. 2010, Ruben Randall. So my point is, Jakai Anderson might be raw. He might be a 3-star, but he's a freak athlete from Louisiana. And if this coaching staff says, we think he can play receiver, you know what? I tend to say, if you think he can, I'm willing to give it a go. So Jakai Anderson becomes the second commit in as many days, second commit overall for the class of 2026. And y'all remember, if you missed yesterday's episode, the previous episode, we talked about the bumper crop in Louisiana for 2026. You've got 5 players in the top 46 nationally. You've got 7 players in the top 100, 3 in the top 15 for the class of 2026. It is a bumper crop in the state, and they're already getting started recruiting the state of Louisiana for 2026 with now Richard Anderson and Jakai Anderson becoming the first 2 players to commit for LSU in the class of 2026. Okay, it wasn't just the class of 2026. LSU also popped a commit for the class of 2025. I want to get to that here in just a quick second. Of course, we are brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, which are now over, the NHL Finals, the Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, which are coming to an end, the College World Series. You can bet on all of it at FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use to bet everything from the finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. It's at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Again, FanDuel.com/locked on and add a big win to your summer bucket list. Matter of fact, I was just checking the College World Series finals odds. I have been in fuego, by the way, in the College World Series, 8-2 in my College World Series bets. And I did pick Texas A&M to win game 1, and I picked A&M actually to win this championship series. Why not? When you had as good a college baseball season betting as I did, you can take a few deep hacks. But of course, make sure you do it at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So there was another commitment for LSU coming out of this weekend. And I think it's one that you should be really, really excited about. And I think it's very telling overall about where this program is when you look at this commitment that LSU got, the second commitment that LSU got, or I guess the third commitment of the weekend, the fourth since Thursday. But LSU got a commitment from Jesse Harrold. And just to kind of give you a little bit of an insight. So Jesse Harrold is out of Tampa, Florida, 6'5", 207. Now, depending on which scouting service you look at, he is a highly regarded edge rusher. In the composite, he's the number 100. He's a 4-star, the number 100 overall player. So another top 100 guy that's in the composite. On 3 ranks him as the 66th best player in the country. 247 rates him as the 73rd best player in the country. So either way, you're talking about a highly rated dude. Somehow ESPN has him way down to 209, which is just weird, but stay in your lane sort of thing. But On 3 has him 66th. 247 has him 73rd. You were talking about an elite physical ability there coming off the edge. And there's 2 components. Well, there's actually 3 that I want to talk about. One is looking at the position itself. And when you go into 2025, so remember, now we're talking about the class of 25, this class, the class that's number 2 in the country right now. This is the class that is going to be replacing 3 of your top 4 guys on the edge. Savion Jones, Braden Swinson, Paris Shand, all seniors. So those guys are all done with their eligibility after this season. So it is really, really important for this recruiting class to focus on the edge position. Now, in 2025, you'll have Deshaun Womack back for his 3rd season, and he looks like he's poised to be a star for 2025 and beyond. Maybe even as a rotational guy in 24 and then a star in 25. Gabe Relaford was an early enrollee. Kalaj Cobbins was an early enrollee here in the class of 2024. They went through spring ball, and both of those guys really had great moments. Dylan Carpenter, another guy from the class of 2024 who'll be going through his freshman season, so he'll be back in theory for 2025, barring a transfer. And yes, LSU could always go into the portal and add some veteran depth, which they should do. And you're going to hear me say that pretty consistently because you should go get veteran depth. It's what the portal allows. But you have to replenish. Remember how Brian Kelly has said openly how he wants to build this class, build his rosters. He wants to build through the high school ranks and develop and then supplement with the portal. Well, in a year like next season, 25, end is someplace where you're probably going to have to add some veteran bodies, just like you did at defensive tackle this year in the portal cycle. But you got a lot of young, talented guys, and you'll be adding Jesse Harrold to the mix. The other thing that's super important about adding Jesse Harrold is he's a top 100 player overall from the state of Florida. Remember, we talk about it all the time. Put a fence around the state, focus on Louisiana. But if there is a player worth getting that's out of state, okay, go get him. If you want to go to Michigan to get Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country, cool. If you want to go to Arkansas to get Carius Kern, who's the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country, cool. If you want to go down to Tampa to get a guy in Jesse Harrold, who is the number 9 edge rusher in the country and as high as the 66th best overall player in the country, do it. When you look at LSU's class breakdown right now, there's 13 players committed. You've got 8 of them from Louisiana, and then 1 each from Arkansas, Florida, Michigan, Mississippi, and Texas. So follow it out. The player from Arkansas is Carius Kern, the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country. The player from Michigan is Bryce Underwood, the number 1 overall player in the country. The player from Florida is who we just talked about. It's Jesse Harrold. You're talking about Mississippi and Texas, where you're talking about Tyler Miller, who's the interior offensive lineman from Laurel, Mississippi. And then from Texas, the player committed from Texas is Charles Ross, the linebacker, who's also inside the top 100 nationally. So if you're going to go get high 4-star top 100 guys in the country out of state at positions of need, okay. And especially when you're still focused in the Southeast, Arkansas, Florida, Texas, Mississippi, okay. It's a vastly different reality than going to Minnesota to get Jackson Howard or going to Las Vegas to get Jeremiah Hughes. So, and those weren't even top 100 guys. Those were 3-star players. Well, I guess Jackson Howard was a 4-star. But the point being, shrink your circle, focus on your areas, and Brian Kelly and his staff are absolutely doing that. So, a really strong weekend for LSU on the recruiting front in the future of this program, to have Bryce Underwood on campus to start your 2026 class and to really pop a couple of big commitments here at the end of this week and this weekend for 2025, a class that's already shaping up to be really special. Okay. That's going to do it for us here on this bonus content of Locked on LSU. If you're new, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review, let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here weekdays and on weekends for bonus content of Locked on LSU. And, of course, we're there on YouTube as well. So if you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you for being there with us as always. We'll look forward to seeing you for a Monday edition here as we start a new week of Locked on LSU, your team every day.